it's 5 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, yes. A charter review, I think, is needed. That should probably be one of the issues that.
Okay.
Martin, do you mind leading us in a word of prayer?
Lord, we come just full of thanksgiving, Lord. Lord, we pray, oh God, that you would bless this meeting. We pray, oh God, that you would direct our thoughts, direct our energies, Lord, that we may always be mindful of why we serve and who we serve. Heavenly Father, we pray, oh God, that you would just be with us, be with our families, be with our citizens, be with our first responders. Lord, we thank you, we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, we'll go ahead and go over the meeting agenda. There are no proclamations or awards.
No. What about Randy Spencer?
She's here and she's on.
It's on here as an item, though.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Councilmember Dean will do the pledges. Are there any questions under the consent?
Here's one.
No,
We have plenty. Oh, okay.
We do have 2 public hearings, a couple of ordinances. Are there any questions there? A couple of resolutions. And are there any appointments to boards?
No, sir.
Okay.
We got 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
You got the email.
Good shot.
All righty, item 3, aquatic facilities operation. Mr. Patton.
There's a couple of applications, and Scott is going to do a little check shot because I didn't know some ones that are.
I'm with you.
Do I need to get that on? Is that happened? No, it doesn't. Peggy, have you looked at that folder? I don't know if you know this. Okay, those are the original minutes that I'm gonna file, and it'll need your signature since you because he was here absent, but I need you to sign it in that pen. That's an archive pen. And council has already approved those minutes, so that's what that is. So I'll be giving you those periodically. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Just a real quick overview. We've got an issue that's going to be coming up real soon. I wanted to talk about it a little bit this evening, and we will come forward later in the next workshop session to have further discussion. But before we get jumping into this, I wanted to introduce somebody that is a very, very important role in the Parks and Recreation Department. She's the one I couldn't remember the name the last time. So
He has to tell everyone.
When I took it to her, he remembered your name.
Yeah.
I got you completely. So.
One of those, 30 moments? I mean, 60.
30.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah.
70 moments.
30 times.
Went blank. But anyway, Jerry Pond is our horticulturist, and she has inspirations to replace Scott once I get rid of him. And he retires.
Ouch.
But for some reason, nobody wants to take my place. I don't understand that. I guess if we're having too much fun at the farm, so.
Nobody thinks they will live that long.
Yeah. We'll have to wait for the new birth then.
But I'm glad Jerry, she does have inspirations to go up the chain of command, and part of our succession planning is we'd like to bring her along and let her view what goes on in administration and get an idea of what happens at the top and kind of get a feel for it. So when the time comes, whenever that may be, I hope not soon, but when that time comes, that we will have somebody that has mentored and gone into and is ready for the position. So thank you for participating. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks everyone for having me.
All the beautiful flowers downtown is what she grows. She is responsible for that. Does a fantastic job for us. Really great job. The information I handed out is an overview, and the overview is notice that we did receive public, not a public, but I did get notice from the YMCA.
Is it in this?
No.
No,
Do you have another?
mine.
Thank you.
We received official notice from the YMCA that they wanted to terminate our contract for the aquatic facilities operations. And that operations includes Sherwood, Woodson, our spray ground at UTPB, as well as Floyd Gwynn. Operation-wise means they just pretty much handle all of our lifeguards, and they do daily maintenance. They also monitor our water. They will add chemicals as needed in the evenings. We do all of the other things and prep the site ready for the upcoming season, and we also close the facility. Now, I had a long discussion with a couple of their board members. I did talk to Chrissy for length. We went over the numbers, and their claim is they've just lost too much money in their operations. I looked over their spreadsheets, had quite a few questions, but it's not our place to run their operations or to dictate their finances. So they did take board action, and they did officially notify us that they canceled the contract. Immediately, we did a proposal RFP to receive proposals. Those were due in the 28th. We solicited 5 proposals. I received 4. The YMCA did come back and give us a proposal. Yeah, they did, but they're gonna make some money at it, if you'll notice that amount.
Yeah.
They went from considerably less than that. Now, I did list in this that the 4 proposals that we received was from American Pool for $188,248, United Pool for $68,500, USA Management out of Grapevine for $223,780. The YMCA did $388,000. We looked at the same scenario and what it would take for us to run it, take it back in-house. That would be $250,364. We took it immediately to a subcommittee of the Park and Recreation Advisory Board, 1 member and 3 staff members, reviewed all of the RFPs. We made a recommendation to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. The advisory board took the recommendation of USA Pools, and we came back with a lot of discussion, and they were supposed to meet when the weather was bad, so we did an electronic vote, and USA came out on top as our recommendation to forward in the form of an agenda item to the city council in the next council meeting. So one reason I know some of the discussions at quick glance, the $68,500 sounds like a bargain.
No.
It's not.
But
It
there's
is
no
not a
way they
bargain.
could even do
No.
the
That's
job. I was wondering,
How could they even do it for that?
It's their management fee.
Great question,
All
I'm
the
glad y'all asked that. It is an administrative fee, and then the little asterisk is, we will bill you separately for labor.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, if I don't have control of the labor costs and who has overtime and who doesn't or anything like that, that ain't what we want. So,
What was the cost last year, Steve?
I'm sorry.
What was the cost last year?
What was the prior contract, Steve?
100 and
Said 172,000.
yeah, 172, and we added a little money to that, about 40,000, I think, for increased costs.
That was added last year.
Was added last
Total
year.
up to 172. That was our contract cost last year with the YMCA, 172.
And so, just out of curiosity, what our biggest problem was finding lifeguards, et cetera, et cetera?
It's well, it's actually every year. It's really not finding, because they'll start off great,
Right,
but
But then after that,
when you get about July the 4th, they don't want to work anymore. It's time to go see grandma and go on vacation, and we're scrambling trying to find people to keep up with what the needs actually. But
And is that
It's
our
hot.
responsibility when you
No.
say we're scrambling? We're
No.
having to close or something because YMCA can't do it?
we have closed things before because we just couldn't staff it like it needed to be. That's been a problem. But one thing I think that is a good thing, and USA pointed out, they provide incentives. So if you stay the whole season, you get a bonus, and that's greatly improved. But
So Steve, on USA, we've talked to other cities that they're managing their pools and they're satisfied with their service.
So isn't that a little bit of a concern though to you, that your managing company is in the Metroplex?
no, because they hire everybody here. They come in and they set one person, and they're here.
Oh,
So they do
We
have
insisted
what?
that, yeah, all their staff will be pretty much the people that ran the pools previously.
Okay.
There'll be one person that'll be an administrator that will float between the two, will go back to Grapevine and be here too, but they will hire, everybody will be local.
bids, your bid being the city is only $27,000 more. I mean, do y'all feel like y'all could do it?
I think some of the complexities that we've talked about and really experienced within taking it back in-house, the influx of 70-something kids, and hitting HR with drug tests and follow-up and all the physicals,
Physicals,
things,
background checks.
and the background checks and all the things that are required, and the first American Red Cross getting all the first aid and all of those licenses in place, because we used to go through that. I don't think I mean, it's a huge impact on HR. One of the problems that I had many years ago when we did have it in-house, we have very strict, and rightfully so, we have very strict sexual harassment policies at the city. And even to the point that, you know, a little hug, that's really not acceptable anymore. And you get 70 teenagers together and they do a lot of hugging. And then, and I spent weeks doing investigations on, well, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that, and come to find out this little girl was mad, and so she claimed sexual harassment. I separated them. I spent the entire summer doing investigations, and it was really taxing, and really, really taxing on.
You don't wanna mess with it.
I guess I don't disagree, but why did we bid then?
I think it was more to illustrate what it would cost us if we
Yes,
had.
yeah, I wanted to make sure, I mean, if we were significantly below the cost, then I wouldn't have an argument.
But this gave you a frame of reference on what it really should be.
Absolutely, yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Any questions? Why would somebody from Georgia bid?
Well, they
They have an office in Houston also.
Oh, okay.
They have,
Yeah.
so they have a Texas
What is their
presence.
package look like fitted?
which one?
Yeah.
Georgia.
Georgia.
The American? Not as detailed as USA. Their proposal, we didn't see the experience with as many municipal facilities as close as ours, with like slides and lazy rivers and all that kind of stuff that we have as far as amenities. And USA called me 3 times asking very specific questions about operations and people. And that's one thing I really did like. And they had been on our website, they did their history, they looked at what we have, and she made comments about she could tell by the maintenance. She was shocked that our pools are 15 years old. She thought they were brand spanking new. And it says a lot about Scott and everybody taking care of them.
They also have very good programming ideas that they bring to the facilities.
I was very impressed with their programming, and
Lots of swim lessons, learn to swim.
So will this be a budget change since it's about 50,000 more than what we have been paying?
we have 200, right at, I believe 400,000 already budgeted. for it.
So we have
So-
budgeted more than what we've
I'm-
been paying?
I'll have to appropriate
Or you'll
a
have to-
little bit of money to make it happen.
I mean, I'm just saying if we had been paying 172, it looked like our budget was what we'd been paying, so
We'll need about a $51,000.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
To me, we don't have as many poinsettias next year, is that the reason we brought it?
Oh,
Sorry.
Hey, any other questions?
No.
Will you get us the proposal?
Do what?
The proposal, will you get it to us, or do we have it?
Now that we've got a recommendation, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should see this in a couple of weeks, Steve?
In a couple of weeks, we'll have it ready to go for a workshop discussion as well as an agenda item. And then when it goes to the city council in the 25th, unfortunately, I'll be at a conference learning about American Disabilities Act. So Philip will have to answer any questions at the council meeting, so. Yeah. Yeah.
She'll be
Yeah,
there.
yeah, she's going to.
Didn't say that.
Any other questions? All right, thank y'all very much. Thanks, Scott.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Seeing you.
Uh,
See you at bowling.
Item 4, University Boulevard construction update. Mr. Felton.
Good evening.
I mean, it's
I
probably
wanted
still
to
recording.
give you an update on university construction. We're nearing a milestone, and I'll get to that.
I got it here.
The other way. So I wanted to give you some highlights of what the contractor has completed to date and what you see out there. This is something new for university, the entire corridor with sidewalks. That's a huge improvement. What the contractor has done has laid down the 5 inches of base material on the whole north side between Andrews Highway and Maple. Actually, this is going to be the temporary driving surface when we shift traffic to the north side to work on the south side. And I say temporary because I've gotten this question a lot. You've probably noticed that the asphalt material is about 2 inches lower than the top of curb. That's because once they get done constructing the south half of the roadway, they're gonna come back and put the final driving surface of asphalt, the 2 inches of asphalt, on the entire width of the roadway. So that's why it's down. I've gotten that question a lot. We're not leaving it like that.
How that is what we typically call the black base, is that right?
That is the black base material. Yes, yes, sir.
Will all the water and snow, any of that damage any of?
That's a good question also. The reason and what's going to happen is why they haven't flipped traffic already and put traffic on here is the contractor is going to come through and do a fog seal on this material. It's basically a thin material just to seal the water out. And because of our snow and rain in the past week, what he's doing is he's letting the material dry out so we don't seal that moisture in. So that should be coming in about next week, hopefully.
You look wonderful.
Another thing is the Dixie intersection is concrete, so he's got the north half done. So that's the finished driving surface there at Dixie. The other concrete section is the low water area, Tom Green Muskingum. That is a concrete driving surface through there. That is the final driving surface in that area.
And how would you explain why there's concrete there and not?
So what we did was this section, because this is the low water area and everything flows south, Tom Green, Muskingum, that area, to keep the pavement intact versus asphalt with the water, that section, the low water area is concrete driving surface.
Because if it were asphalt, it would tear apart.
Yes, maintenance. This is something new. Casabella Park at Maple never had a fence. So children next to roadway. So as part of the project, we put a chain link fence along the length of the park there.
That's good.
Great idea.
As part of this, because we're widening the road, I needed longer signal mast arms to get those signal indications out over the roadway. So we modified Dixie and we modified Maple. And if you're out there at night, the street lights at the signal do a great job of lighting up the intersection to increase safety. This is something new also for university. It's new for Odessa. This is the first of 5 Easy Rider bus pullouts that are going to be on this corridor. So this is also adjacent to Casabella Park, but there's going to be 4 more locations where Easy Rider can actually get off the street, do their loading, unloading, and without stopping traffic. Thank you, Cindy. And at the west end, traffic is already using the new surface. There was no reason to keep it closed down to 1 lane approaching Andrews Highway, so the contractor opened it up to traffic, opened up some lanes to get traffic flowing. So, and then the final thing is when we were talking about just a second ago about construction. So right now he's working between Andrews and Maple on the north side of the roadway. What's going to happen is we're going to flop traffic. So we're going to put traffic on the new roadway on the north half, and he's going to build the south half. And so that's the way the construction's gonna progress down the corridor. So we'll finish phase 2, then he'll be on phase 3 working here, traffic will be on the south side, and then do a flip-flop and finish out the south side of construction. Each phase, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is roughly 6 months. That's how it's been going. We'll see if he holds to that schedule, but.
The weather has a lot to play.
And the weather, and he's working in the low water areas right now. So maybe things will speed up here. We'll see. But that's university. I just want to give you a heads up because, like I say, hopefully the next week or so, we'll be doing a flip-flop here of traffic. So be careful that there's going to be changes. Yes, sir.
Al, talk a little bit about what we're doing to alleviate some of the issues as it relates to business owners along university and how we're trying to provide them alternate accesses to their business.
So, as Michael mentioned, business. Most of this section is corridor, and the corridor is residential. But this end down towards Andrews is pretty commercial. So, especially on this north side, and that was another good reason why the contractor opened up this area to traffic, is that he could service, or these businesses could have more direct access to traffic. So that's been a good thing. Another side point is when we flip traffic over and he's working on the south side, as you might know, the Blooming Rose Florist Shop has been very boisterous about that we cannot shut her down before Valentine's Day.
Right.
That was a major stipulation. And so we are going to wait till after Valentine's Day, Friday, then we've got the go-ahead to go. But the other big thing, Chick-fil-A has been working with the contractor because they're a big traffic generator. So we have been working, and the contractor's been working with the businesses.
They did a good entrance to Chick-fil-A, I believe,
Off Andrews Highway, yes. Yes, ma'am.
How's the communication done? Is it you and staff that are having to do it, or is it for when the plans of when we're going to switch and all those different types of things?
It's staff working with the contractor. Yes, sir.
But how do you tell the community what's happening?
So I've been working with Devin a lot, and we've been doing I don't know how many we've done press releases through the construction on the north half. And what we'll have to do is we'll do another press release saying that there's traffic changes coming. Be aware. So yes, that will be city.
Put it on the paper, then kind of maybe I want to.
You know, just out of curiosity, when Chick-fil-A, they I guess got permission to cut through the other two parking
Yes.
lots. Like for the Blooming Rose or any of those others, but do you think they would be allowed to put up like a temporary sign on
Some of those
one
side
of the other
streets
side
or
streets to direct?
yeah, and we can because when there's construction right in front of their business, the primary access point is going to be those side streets coming up from the
Yes.
south.
Yes.
So yeah, we can either work with the contractor, or we can do it in house of some business signing, business direction signing.
I mean, I think that's really helpful to the consumer. I have stayed off at the university.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My car thanks me too. And but that's really helpful getting into Chick-fil-A. So.
And I figured, I avoided it too, but I did want to just kind of see what happened. And it's a really pretty good flow most times.
Yes. Yeah.
I've
It
been
does.
surprised
Yeah,
that
I
it
was
moves
too.
faster than you would think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been using 31st because we've been trying to get the word out to avoid university use 31st, and I think it's working because when I'm on 31st, there's a lot of cars there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I think people are finding alternate routes, and it helps. So.
Did you want to tell them where the cul-de-sacs are going to fall in?
It's hard to see on this. as part of this, there are so many street intersections on this corridor. There are, I want to say there's 3 streets from the south in this first, or the phase 2, that are going to be closed to University, and there's going to be cul-de-sacs, eliminating all those different access points. Hancock, Eisenhower, and Keystone are going to be closed to the traffic on the south side. And a lot of those are because the cross streets are so close, and when you're trying to make a left turn to go north and south, you're actually overlapping each other on University. So we're trying to simplify some of those turning movements at some of those intersections, especially when they're offset.
I think it's more than simplify, it's a safety issue.
It's a safety, yes, sir.
And those
so
are gonna
those
be
permanent?
Those will be permanent closures, yes.
One of the things they talked to us about is the numbers of ways you could get on University, whether it's an alley, whether it's streets, talking about they were offset.
Yes.
So if you're turning left and I'm turning left, you can't do it. And the
Right.
fact that 2 trucks driving beside each other, the mirrors would almost touch.
Yeah.
And that's, that was the safety issues we'd had to deal with when we were talking about it.
And that's the advantage of why, the other reason of why we're going wider is because we had some substandard lanes out there, like you say about the mirrors. So, yes, we're wider.
What were those streets again that are gonna close?
Hancock, Eisenhower, Keystone.
But the citizens know, because the contractor went out and talked to them and had meetings and said, we're talking about this.
We're
There were
building-
some that we proposed that we decided not to, because citizens.
We're building them
And that's on the
driveways on the
south
cul-de-sac.
side, right?
That's on the south
Yeah.
side.
That's gonna be good, for Hancock because of the career center. That was rough.
Does Easy Rider know about the those?
They are excited.
Yes, yes. I've been talking to them. I've been
them.
talking to them throughout the whole process, like going on 4 years, and I'm trying to encourage them maybe to do something special at those
That's
pull-ups,
what I
a
was
special
thinking.
shelter or something different. So yes.
Just hadn't heard it, so I think Tom and I kind of tuned it at the meeting.
Yes.
Make sure they know what we're doing.
Well, they're excited.
Because they've
It
had
gets
some
them out.
changeover in
It's safer.
leadership too.
Absolutely, but they just kind of feel, that we're not doing enough.
I hope they do put some shelters. I saw four guys standing out in the rain today.
And those shelters too are great advertising opportunities. I mean, you can pretty much build those with advertising dollars.
Okay, any other questions?
Good job, Al.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Al.
You have a good job.
Last, item 5, crime statistics update. Chief Kirk.
There is no crime, so we're.
There is no crime.
We are very safe.
Could you send
We will.
those? I would just like to have a copy of
This is.
it, and probably this one too, if there's not any handout.
I think this is probably going to end up being a multi-part series because I've got 10 minutes and we can talk for about 4 days. But
You've got more time, actually. So.
we'll just talk about some violent crime today, and then we'll go into property crime later, and then accidents and that sort of thing.
Sounds great.
And before you start, Chief,
Sure.
I mean, this really arose out of last year. I think there were some questions from the council of how we're comparing ourselves, not only to ourselves over previous years, but other communities. And then there's a whole discussion of how our numbers are reported. So
Yes.
that'll be important for the council
Yes.
to really understand that.
Okay. All right, murders. Last year we had 15 total murders. The year before we had 8 reported murders. Now let's qualify that. Of the 15, 2 were officer-involved shootings. The active shooter being one, and the individual Donatello that came out of his house and shot in the air several times, then pointed his firearm at officers, and officers shot him. So now we're down to 13. 5 of that 13 were victims of the shootings on August 31st, that tragedy. So if you subtract that one tragic day, there were 7 total victims. 5 of those were within the city of Odessa.
Okay.
I saw the questioning look. That's where we come up with that.
One was a truck driver and the other
So, there we are that. So if you would take that one horrific day away, we're at exactly the same level we were the year before. Do we have any questions on that statistic?
Most of what you see, I mean, especially murders,
Yes.
isn't it domestics typically?
Okay, and I will say this as a broad general statement. The two very large drivers of crime in Odessa are narcotics and narcotic sales and family violence. And a lot of the violent crime is family violence related. Yes.
What is unknown?
Okay, this is unknown. This is the murder that we've had that is still unsolved last year. So we don't know circumstances and that sort of thing because we can't prove that at this point. So that's why we have the unknown there.
Can't put it in a class.
Okay, sexual assaults. Now this includes sexual assaults, aggravated sexual assaults, and indecency with a child. These are several different things that we're talking about. A sexual assault is when, not necessarily a male, but anyone forces themselves on someone else. Aggravated sex, it becomes aggravated when a gun's involved, when there's a threat of violence involved, when there is violence. That's when that becomes an aggravated offense. Indecency with the child is the molestations that you see. Okay. Now, not all. When we talk about this, and you look at FBI's UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting, our numbers won't match. This what I'm showing here is not going to match UCR. These numbers here were probably going to be a little bit higher than UCR because we want to get the full picture. We want to analyze our numbers and see what's going on so we know how to attack those. Okay? So.
So what do ours have that there's done? When you say we want the full picture, what did they?
Well, they have certain criteria that we have to follow that we report every month.
Okay.
We actually take a much broader view of that.
So Chief, if I could.
Sure.
Again, and I think that's a distinction in the way we operate report our numbers versus perhaps other cities and how they operate.
Well, and let's talk about UCR again for a moment also. UCR really relies on population. They do, either this number of crimes per 1,000 or this number of crimes per 100,000, okay? One of my really big issues, I've got two really big issues with that. Number one is, what's the population here? DPS crime stats say 121,000. I don't know if I believe that. It showed us that 2 years ago we actually lost 2,000 people in the city of Odessa.
I think we found them.
So that's my problem with that, because I don't think that those people that come here and work 5 days a week, stay in the hotels, get counted in that. So I'm really not sure about the population. My other thing is, I'm really not concerned about crimes per 100,000. I want zero total base numbers, right? So I'm really not concerned about crimes per 1,000. I want zero in every category. So that's what we have to shoot for. Okay, so some of the things that we found here are kind of troubling, really. 36.7% of our victims are family members of the suspect. 44.08% of our victims knew the suspect in some other way but weren't related. So that means over 80% of our victims knew their attacker. They were acquainted with their attacker in some way. 9.95% of reports show that the attacker has not reported. This usually means that the victim doesn't want to follow through, doesn't want to pursue charges. And we understand that. I mean, you have victims that don't want to deal with this, and I get that. I absolutely get that. And only 6.64% of our victims did not know their attacker in absolutely any way.
6%.
So we had 23 more sexual assaults last year than we did the year before.
And again, those are going to be primarily either, unfortunately, child assaults or
Family related, yes. Our clearance rate is 30%. National average is 33.4. So we're a little low. We need to do some work there. A lot of that becomes as we are working a case and then your victim refuses to cooperate at a certain point, that case then gets closed because there's nowhere else to go with it. It becomes unsolved. So it's not clear. The only way it's cleared is if we forward that case for prosecution.
You know what the total was?
Yes. The total was 141.
Chief, on the national average, is
Yes.
that 80.15% of victims knew their attacker? Is that pretty close to the same on the national level?
You know what? I don't know those stats. I can't find those stats on national level. Any other questions about this? Aggravated assaults. Again, only 13.63% of the victims did not know their attacker. They were strangers. 18.85% of the reports showed again that the attacker, under attacker information, that it was unknown. Again, usually meaning that the victim chose not to cooperate, chose not to move forward with things.
Chief, and again, if you'll explain aggravated assaults.
Aggravated assaults, basically those are, it's a wide range of things. If someone points a gun at you, that's an aggravated assault. If someone shoots you, that's an aggravated assault. If someone stabs you, if someone beats you with their hands to the point where you sustain serious bodily injury. Serious bodily injury is a broken bone. So if someone breaks your jaw, that can be, takes one swing at you and breaks your jaw, that could be an aggravated assault. Just a wide range of things.
Again, the majority of the victims knew their attackers. Is this where we see mostly family violence?
This is where family violence, I mean, particularly under the new statutes that enhance strangulations, the strangulation charges for domestic violence, which are awesome. So before, if someone, if say an attacker wrapped their hands around a domestic partner and choked them, and it didn't cause serious bodily injury, it was at most a Class A misdemeanor, and which would go to county court and probably receive very little punishment. Now that's a felony. That became very important to us. Anytime you restrict someone's airways.
Good.
We had 181 more this year than last. And let's talk about that. So, and I hate to keep blaming some stats on August 31st, but understand that but we took so many reports, and I don't have the number for you here, but we took not just the people that were shot that lived, but anyone that he shot at, that he pointed the gun at, all those people, those become aggravated assault reports.
Wow.
Our clearance rate is 52.24%, national average is 52.5%. And again, a lot of times, the cases you don't clear are those that your victims don't cooperate.
Of the August 31st victims.
Yes.
Every one of those cases was cleared.
Yes.
So using that as pushing your numbers above it, then we were actually a little bit below national average.
Well, we are a little bit below national average anyway. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But I'll show you another one that's really blowing you out of your mind. It's going to look awesome, but I'll explain it to you. Any other questions here? Robberies. 39% committed with a firearm, 34% committed with personal weapons, hands, 9.8% committed with a knife, and we had 24 more this year than last year. And this wonderful clearance rate, 70%, 70.94% compared to 30.4%. That looks like an outlier, right? I'll explain that to you. There are jurisdictions, we call it an aggravated theft, but if you have a shoplifter and he then is caught for theft and he fights with loss prevention at a store, that is technically a robbery. A lot of jurisdictions won't file it that way. Some will file it as a theft and an assault. We file it as robbery. Okay, so that pushes our numbers up, but it also pushes our clearance rates up. So on one hand, our numbers for robbery look worse, but it also inflates our clearance rates. And that would, I mean, I would say the vast majority of that 34.8% are those type of robberies.
But the penal code kind of allows you
It does.
to interpret that way.
Well, it actually
Yeah.
says that if there's violence involved with a theft, then it is a robbery.
It's a robbery.
But a theft's a misdemeanor.
So how many total?
How many total? 128. 128 total.
Well, I think you're right on considering those as robberies and not two separate.
No,
Yeah.
I think we are also. I think for several reasons. I think it's the right thing to do. It's the right charge. I think if you don't file that charge that way, then these retailers don't get justice. The loss prevention people at these stores are unarmed, and usually, and really for them to have to struggle with this person, it's just not fair for us to file it as a theft and an assault. That's my belief. I also believe that when we file it that way, we're being honest. Right? We're being honest and we're being transparent. This is what happens. Do I wish these numbers were better? Absolutely. But again, we're being honest and transparent. This is what they are. Okay. And I believe that is the last slide. What questions do y'all have concerning any of this? Yes, ma'am.
If you would just tell all of your men and women, thank you for everything they do.
Absolutely. What would you, if you were gonna give a reason for our crime rate to be up, and it seems to be up,
Yes.
what would you put it, where would you put the blame or put the?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe that we have seen a pretty dramatic increase in juvenile crime. I will say that I'll give the example of the robbery over the weekend on West County Road. I mean, you had a 17-year-old and two 16-year-olds involved with that. I think we've seen a pretty dramatic increase in that juvenile crime.
Is that because there's an increase in gangs? Or, I mean.
No, not necessarily. I think, the term gang depends how you define
Yeah,
it. I mean,
well, I don't really
but
know
as
what it
in cooperation, yeah, I think really just the amount of narcotics that flowed through Odessa, I think, contributes to that and encourages the formation of these groups.
Chief, the other thing I
Sure.
perhaps we could dive into a little bit more at the end of
Sure.
this is really talk about the UCR, because again,
Yes.
the way in which we calculate our numbers and tabulate our numbers is very different than other cities. So, and it's my view
Yes.
that when you look at those numbers and you see higher numbers in our communities than most other, there's a way to submit those numbers where perhaps you don't look as bad. And I think what the chief is doing is really submitting the way he sees it.
What does UCR stand for?
Uniform reporting.
Uniform crime reporting.
Crime reporting, yes, sir.
Yes, and you can find it under the FBI's website.
So are there offsets? If we're higher here, are we lower somewhere else?
No, because again, if you report the way we report, I think our numbers are going to be a little bit higher than other people that don't report that way. I'll give another example. Say we have an assault, and we roll up on the scene, and our victim says that they don't want to file charges. Well, Code of Criminal Procedure says you will make a report. Now, there's a couple ways you make that report, right? You can make that report as an officer narrative that doesn't hit UCR, or you make the original report. We report everything the same way. If the victim doesn't want to prosecute, we report that the same way as if the victim does want to prosecute. So that hits UCR. So I think those are some of the differences in the way we report and the way maybe some other people don't.
And that also affects your clearance.
Yes.
On that.
Yeah.
Lowers that clearance rate.
Because again, we're going to be honest about it. I mean, if that means I have to come up here and get some questions, then I'm up here getting some questions. That's okay.
Can that also ultimately help that victim if that ongoing violence continues?
Yes, absolutely.
Then there is already a report on
Right.
file
That's
that
That's
there
why
have
we
been
do it. That's a
violence
good
against
point.
them in the past.
And the other thing is too, just because at the scene that victim says I don't want to prosecute doesn't mean Tuesday morning, they haven't changed their mind.
Right.
Because depending on the classification of the offense, you know, they have at least 2 years to decide this. You can file misdemeanors for 2 years. So,
And you gotta have good reports.
and you gotta have, if you didn't take a good report to begin with, it's kinda hard to backtrack, right?
Yeah.
Chief Hartman, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
That, okay, say you've got a parking lot, 5 cars are broke into.
Yes,
Some cities will say that's one act.
yes.
Because it was one person that did all 5 of them. But other cities report that as 5
Yes.
separate acts.
Yes.
So this city who reported it correctly looks worse because they did it right versus the one that didn't, that said it was one.
Another good example of that would be storage buildings.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
if you
your
get
numbers
certain-
look bad because you did it right,
Yeah.
but your neighbor city may not be doing it that way, therefore,
So storage buildings, ours would be each individual storage building.
even though the same guy did one.
Now that is, that's gonna level out, I believe, in the very near future because, the state of Texas and the FBI are requiring everyone to go away from UCR and go to NIBRS, which is more incident based. So, I mean, it's gonna count everything that happens in an incident instead of just the one thing.
Let's level in the playing field.
I think it is. Some.
But some can still work.
Well, if you know, again, if you,
Yeah.
it can happen.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we got 14 minutes.